Hello and welcome to the Megacast. Today's topic, enterprise storage and hyperconvergence. On today's event, you'll hear from experts at Nutanix, Datrium, Pure Storage, and Cohesity. This event is brought to you by ActualTech Media. My name is David Davis of ActualTech Media, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's event. Now, if you haven't been on a Megacast before, you should know that we at ActualTech Media created the Megacast and EcoCast event series to help educate IT professionals such as yourselves about the latest and greatest in enterprise technology. You never have to leave your home or office. You don't have to go downtown to the convention center, and you can do it all from the comfort of wherever you might be. You can get all your questions answered, hopefully learn a lot. We want these events to be educational and have a chance to win some very cool prizes as well. Now, before we jump into it, we have just a little bit of housekeeping here that we first need to cover. We have done prizes a little bit differently today. I'll talk about that in just a moment. It's good news, trust me. We also, like I said, we want this to be educational, so we've got the questions tab on the left-hand side there of your audience console, and I'll draw your attention to that now. You can see the questions tab just to the right of the word handouts. Of course, we appreciate all the good mornings and hellos. Thank you, Vince, Nick, Jeff, Chris, Elaine, Sean. Thank you, everyone. All the wonderful good mornings and hellos coming in from the audience. Of course, we always appreciate that. Keep your technical questions coming throughout the event. We'll be doing dedicated Q&A sessions with each one of today's presenters. So keep those good questions coming. We want this event to be social. We have a icon at the bottom of the screen for Twitter. If you click on that, you can tweet directly from your console, and the hashtag for today's event will be automatically appended. That is ATM Megacast. We also have a number of handouts there in the handouts tab from Cohesity, Datrium. Nutanix is a link to a resource at their website, and Pure Storage as well. So go ahead and download those PDF assets now, and you can check those out after the event. Now, on the event, we'll be announcing the winner of 10 $300 Amazon gift cards today. So lots of prizes to give out. Of course, this is a Megacast, and we always do mega prizes, as I like to say. So keep your eyes and ears tuned to the event to see if your name is called for one of those 10 gift cards. To be eligible for the prizes, you must be present on the live event. Winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to ActualTech Media. We will reach out to prize winners after the event. The prize terms and conditions can be found on the Handouts tab. There are a number of other legal prize terms and conditions that you might want to be aware of. Now, through ActualTech Media's charity budget here, we have been donating $500 to direct relief for every Megacast, EcoCast, and Summit event that we have been doing. We've been donating this to direct relief, which provides medical supplies to frontline healthcare professionals. And of course, we encourage you to do that as well until COVID-19 is beat. We've also been donating to the selected charities, the Diane Fossey Gorilla Fund and One Tree Planted, in cooperation with the Gorilla Guide Book Club. You can download Gorilla Guides over at gorilla.guide in your web browser. Tons of educational resources available there on that website. Complete ebooks, download those for free. I encourage you to check those out. I talked about social. The hashtag for today is actually ATM Megacast. You can follow ActualTech Media on Twitter at ActualTech Media, and me as well, David M. Davis. I would appreciate that, of course, and also encourage you to check out our other social media assets. On the top right-hand side of the title bar there, you'll find icons for YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. We also have a podcast over in the iTunes store called the 10 on Tech podcast, where we interview technology professionals in the industry in just 10 minutes. We post most of our latest and greatest content over on LinkedIn, so I encourage you to follow ActualTech Media on LinkedIn as well. Now, before I do a little keynote and some poll questions, and then we'll introduce our first presenter, I wanted to briefly point out that at the end of today's event, I will be chatting just quickly about the ActualTech Media Envoy program. This is a new opportunity for deeper levels of engagement with enterprise IT vendors, and a chance to help educate your fellow IT professionals. So we've got a few slides and a special link for that at the end of today's event, so I encourage you to stay tuned. Now, most of you have heard of hyperconvergence and converged infrastructure before, but you might not have thought about, exactly the difference between the two. So before we jumped into the topic today, just a brief background here to do some stage setting on converged infrastructure. If you haven't thought about the difference between converged and hyperconverged, converged is when groups of multiple components are packed into a single optimized package. And those components can include servers, data storage, network, and especially important is software for management, automation, and orchestration. And then also similar in concept but different is hyperconverged infrastructure. And you'll learn about both of these on the event today. Hyperconverged is a little bit more software-centric, and it tightly integrates compute, storage, networking, and virtualization resources, typically using commodity hardware and typically supported by a single vendor. So on the event, you'll learn about disaster recovery as a service, converged infrastructure, hyperconvergence, secondary storage, data protection, all sorts of storage-related solutions. And I encourage you, as you do this, just think about converged versus hyperconverged, how these things are different, how they can help you to save time and money, how all these solutions can make your life easier and make you look like the hero to your IT organization, help you to do your job better. And of course, since there's always different approaches to solving the same problem, make sure you understand the pros and cons of these different solutions. Select the solution that's the best fit for you and your company. There's not just one silver bullet for every company. There are multiple solutions that are a good fit for all different sorts of companies with different IT challenges. And then I encourage you, of course, to take the time to fully test before you buy, do a proof of concept. So that's my advice. And now I'm interested to hear your feedback. I've got a few poll questions. The first one is, which of these are your greatest storage challenge? And I'll share the results of these with you because I'm honestly very curious to find out the results as well. Now, if you select other on here, just pop in the chat box there, or in the questions box, what your storage challenge is, because I'd be curious to find out what I've missed on this poll question, what's missing, and we can make better poll questions next time. And I'll also read out your storage challenge here on the event as well. So I'm looking at the questions box. For anyone who puts other in here, I'm curious to find out what that other is. All right, so thank you everyone for your responses to this poll, and you can select multiple, of course. You don't have just one storage challenge. I would bet most of us have multiple storage challenges. All right, excellent. So let me share the results of this poll with you. And it looks like the winner here, if there is really a winner, or the greatest storage challenge, is 38% said high cost, simply the high cost of storage, followed very closely, 37%, by scalability and capacity challenges. After that, data protection and DR, followed by performance. So cost, capacity, protection, and performance are all the top challenges being faced by the hundreds of IT professionals on the event today. So you might see your challenge in that list, I'm betting. Next question here, and again, I'll share the results of this one. Which of these are you most interested in as solutions that could potentially help solve, these challenges that you're facing? And you can select all of these if you want, really. You don't have to select just one, again. And if you select other, feel free to drop that other in the questions box as well. I'd be curious to find out what you're interested in that's not on the list. So, and of course, by the end of this event, I would be willing to bet that your selections here might change, based on what you learn on the event today. So I appreciate all these responses coming in. Thank you for those. And let me share the results of this one with you. All right, 38%, or let's see, the top response here was 47% said simply higher capacity and lower cost storage solutions. So that's the number one thing that IT pros are most excited about on the event today is simply getting more storage capacity for a lower cost. And overall, I'm sure most likely lowering cost. And there's a number of different ways, that can be accomplished, followed by hyperconvergence, disaster recovery as a service, flash storage with greater performance. So thank you for all those responses. And then final poll question before I introduce you to our first presenter, and that is, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing storage solutions at your company? So you said you're interested in some of these solutions. Roughly, what's your time frame? When do you plan to do that at your company? And I've got a few comments coming in here in the chat. Let's see. William says his other was managing the data, daily use versus antiquated, stale, or non-changing data. So managing the data that you have, I think that's a great challenge that a lot of companies are facing. I know I face that just in my personal storage, having cloud storage that's just constantly overflowing, and local storage that seems to be just constantly overflowing. So that's a good one. Thank you for sharing that one, William. Ferris said renewal costs are typically what you'd want to look at as a different solution to lower the price with the same or similar feature sets. Very great point. Very good point there. Yep, always look at renewal costs because they typically go up over time, and a lot of times that renewal is kind of the trigger to purchase a new storage solution. And let's see, next comment here, failover and failback capability, absolutely, along with disaster recovery. We'll be learning about disaster recovery as a service today, and in fact, I think that's a great question to ask them is not only can they do failover, but failback, because failback is often forgotten about. All right, we're just getting our first presenter in to the event today. All right, and with that, it's time to kick off today's MegaCast. I'm excited to introduce Mr. Michael Letchen, Director of Technical Advocacy and Principal Technologist at Cohesity. Michael, are you there?
I am here. Great to talk to you.
Great to have you on, Michael. Take it away.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So welcome, everyone. As David said, I am the Director of Technical Advocacy and Principal Technologist for Cohesity. We actually today, I'm going to really run through for about the next 20 minutes or so on some new concepts and things that people might not be as familiar about with Cohesity. Some things about how we handle file and object storage. So a lot of people think Cohesity and right away their thought is data protection. But as a full data management platform, we actually offer quite a bit more than just the backup solutions of old. So with that, I'm going to jump right into kind of the first thing here that is important. If you guys are aware, and everyone has seen, and even some of the results said, you need more space. And a lot of that is because, as we're being told, the amount of unstructured data in most environments is expected to triple in the next few years. And that, I really believe, is a rather conservative number, especially nowadays. This was done obviously in 2019, but now with everyone working from home, we actually see even more data being collected and added. And we're seeing it just grow and grow on what unstructured data really is. Now, for us, we looked at it and said, well, what does a legacy NAS look like today? And really, that's traditionally, you've got your SMB and your NFS, and you've got basic file storage with whether it's users accessing it for home directories or an app that is directly accessing it. And then it grew a little bit from there, and it grew into having different machines access it via things like S3 and swept in more of an object performance. And then object was used for things like archival purposes. But the users were pretty close to the storage there. Then we added apps on top of that. The apps had to get there, so the users then got pulled back a little bit further. And then we have, what are all these apps doing? So there are things that add on top of the standard file protocols, things that you're utilizing for, whether you're doing antivirus of that user data, whether you want to have to do compliance checking. Obviously, with the way things are today, with things like GDPR and the California regulations and all that, there's compliance that has to happen. Plus, depending on whether you're in healthcare or legal, there's obviously more things that add into that. From there, we need to know what's happening with your data. And there's things like tools like Splunk that are utilized for that, to really see those, to analyze your logs, to be able to see what's happening with the data that's happening in that NAS today. And then how do you make sure that you're not putting your data in the wrong spot? So there's tools out there today that will migrate data and give you things like leaving your hot data on your expensive storage and moving the rest off to tier 2, tier 3, but still being able to access it. And from there, we add in the ability to then tie that out to the cloud. And that normally requires something like a cloud gateway today, to either for replication of the data out there, or whether you want to access things like AWS services or Azure services coming into utilizing that NAS you have today. Now, all of this has been fine in the past, but what's really missing is the ability to tie all this back, tie it into a single solution, and then get the users better access, quicker access at a higher level. That's where we brought in what we call our Cohesity SmartFiles, and this is our NAS solution. What we've done is we've consolidated that file storage and object gateway, as well as the cloud gateway, down all onto our data platform. Now, on top of that is what you're traditionally used to, our Data Protect also, giving you a single interface, whether you're doing protection with your Data Protect or you want to manage your standard data and your unstructured data utilizing the SmartFiles platform. From there, we wanted to move all of these users and the machines and the apps out, put them closer to where they need to be, bring those little pieces and those tools that we're utilizing to manage your NAS closer to the NAS, and don't make it interfere with the users. So what that means is we've developed a platform that allows us to do apps and applications on top of our data platform, having a way to bring things like antivirus close to the data. Most of the time now, a lot of users don't worry about doing antivirus on a NAS. They do it at the endpoint because it's just too labor intensive. It takes up too much time. It takes up too many cycles. You're not able to get the performance if you add antivirus in. By moving antivirus close to the data, we're able to work around that. Then maybe you need to look into things like the compliance side of things. Understand if what files are what users accessing. We can do that with what we have as our Spotlight application. And then, of course, you can do things like analytics, whether you want to dig into seeing where files are. A lot of times this comes up with things like GDPR. We want to know where someone's name is so that it can be removed if need be. We can do that with our Insight app. And then, of course, being able to use data tiering and not have to keep all of your hot data on very expensive storage. Now, this allows you to potentially keep your existing NAS in place. Maybe you have a production NAS that's on any of the standard NAS platforms that you've done maybe an all-flash array with. Now, that's a very expensive storage solution. So why don't we only keep our hot data, which often is only 2 to 5% of all your data, out on that storage, but allow the users to access it a single way by leaving stubs. And we'll do that for you, whether it's NFS or SMB, and then connect out into the cloud as well. Now, how do we get down that data management journey? So we want you to be able to not just switch over, but be able to grow your path into that. Modernizing not just your backups and your ability to recover your primary storage, but also consolidating in those file and object services. Putting that into a way that gives you a single platform with true data management. Making sure that the integrations with the cloud are built in and aren't a secondary thought and haven't been just, well, we figure we'll get to there. You really want to make sure that the solution's built for it. And then we want to make sure that we're eliminating what we refer to as mass data fragmentation. Now, a lot of people aren't sure what that term really means, but think about having files and objects spread all over your environment. Maybe you have branch offices that they're spread throughout and you can't really get to them. Maybe you have multiple copies out in different cloud solutions. You want to eliminate that and bring that down so you're not overdoing your storage. People want to have that less cost, higher space, higher capacity on their storage. The way to do that is to make sure that you're utilizing your data correctly, making sure your data is being managed. Now, I'm going to go through quite a few different scenarios here of where the challenge is and how we can give you a benefit for this. The first is that freedom of choice on what you want to do. Being a software-defined platform, we really look at things like having that vendor lock-in eliminated and being able to deploy wherever you want. Now, deploying anywhere you want gives you the ability we either can run on-prem on a standard appliance that a lot of people are used to, or we can run out in the cloud, or a combination thereof. That also includes even robo solutions. So a lot of times people are thinking this has to be a very large solution to go in the enterprise data center, where in all reality, we're going to allow you to run this even down on a robo solution out at that branch office. And the hardware platform is up to you. Whether you want to use a Cisco server solution, you want to use ours, you want to use an HPE, your choice on what you want to do. We have multiple hardware platforms that have been validated with the software. This allows you to transition off and allows you to even play those hardware vendors off of each other. So when you want to look at moving potentially from an HPE to a Cisco or vice versa, you put out an RFP and let them compete for you, because now they just need to run the software on top. Truly the benefit of being software defined. With that, that means you need to have a broad capability of what you're looking at. Now today, there's a lot of complexity when you're trying to manage mixed Windows and Linux environments, and then manage things that are both local as well as in the cloud. That's not the business that you want to be in. The business that you're trying to do is what your business makes money on. It should be simple for IT to be able to do this, and having a seamless interoperability between the protocols is key. Having a single platform that provides unified file permissions between NFS, SMB, as well as S3 gives you the ability to have a single solution. You get to get rid of that complexity, not add another gateway on, not add more different file permissions and management of it, all while accelerating the ways that you can get to the cloud as well. A lot of companies, we know that's the mandate, so why not help it out? Then, in this day and age, we need as many things as possible to be stress-free. There's enough other stressors in our life today. Why would we worry about having our storage be something that is adding stress? Part of that stress tends to be if we're going to do a migration from an existing NAS to a new NAS. And I understand that can be a lot on someone's plate if they don't have a good process to do it. With the SmartFile solution, we actually offer multiple different ways to migrate from an existing NAS to ours. Now, you don't necessarily need to migrate the entire thing. Like I mentioned, we do have that tiering option, so maybe you keep some things on that storage that you've already paid for. As you grow, you don't need to spend the money on tier 0 storage, when in all reality, your data growth is probably happening in tier 2, tier 3. If that's not the option, you can utilize that true data platform to do things like back up that NAS and just restore it right out onto a Cohesity view within SmartFiles, giving you that option of a quick migration. This works whether you're doing it for production or if you're doing it for something like a test dev environment. Now, speaking of test dev, a lot of times you're looking at something like automations needed for that. And everything around our platform is built on APIs to provide true flexible automation and be able to manage it as you wish. So you've got more time now to deal with the things you need to deal with, not be stressed out about how are you going to do a migration on a NAS, or how are you going to worry about your space and your capacity increasing. You can do that all within that same data platform. Now, I mentioned some of those apps that are integrated. Now, this is really where this becomes truly SmartFiles. It's one of the many pieces of it. Now, you don't have to have separate software infrastructure and a separate hardware infrastructure just to have all your auditing and searching capabilities. When you move all of those things to you, you get a lot better performance with less hardware, and less management. Our integration with antivirus is a great example of that, or our file audit. Starting with the antivirus, you see all of those things that have been flagged. If a file is flagged as a potential virus issue, you see that pop up within the same console. You don't have to create another system. We'll actually add it right into the same platform. File audit and search also within the same platform. Simply open up the Insight app and we'll give you indexed fast results of those shares that you already have in use. Nice and easy way to truly integrate in with your own data and manage your data as you want it. Now, you can't just open that up, though. I keep saying how easy it is to integrate and manage it. We have to make sure that it's secure as well. And today, ITs have to architect and deploy with that in mind. You can't just say, I'm going to put a new solution in without it being secure. So what we have done by default, added in that multi-layer security for you and made sure that we can do things like add encryption as needed. Make sure that you've got that antivirus, which is a big step of it, but have that thing like multi-factor authentication, providing end-to-end utilization of a single UI. It doesn't matter how much we secure it or how much I tell you about it if you can't get to it. And our history coming out of a lot of the heritage of Google allows us to make sure that we have set file search capability, fast indexing, easy search across multiple different environments. Now, I mentioned that mass data fragmentation. That's where this really comes into play. If you need to search for a file, search for an object, something you have sitting out there, being able to have a true multi-use search capability and search across platforms, that's what this provides you. You don't need any additional software or hardware that you add into it. That Google-like search is built in across all of the parts of the Cohesity data platform. And then you really want to keep the cost down. Now, a lot of the challenges with that, as I mentioned before, is there's duplicate copies across all sorts of data centers, across your branch offices. If you think about it, if you have branch offices, you most likely have files out there for HR and payroll. Well, those same files are probably sitting at HQ, and they're sitting at multiple locations, and then probably a replica of it out into the cloud, really making the cost of your data skyrocket. By adding in things like deduplication and compression, as well as being able to do some much more advanced small file optimization, we're able to tier things off of your tier 1 storage, migrate off that tier 1 storage, and give you a lot more efficiency. Not only do we do that, but we do dedupe across multiple different volumes. So if you have multiple shares, we will dedupe across them, something that gives you an even higher level of efficiency by keeping your costs down, just allowing you to buy less hardware, but continue to grow your data. Really what this sums up is the ability to have that enterprise file and object storage platform with multi-protocol access, whether it's integration with Active Directory or that unified storage, having that built-in data protection, having snapshots of your shares built in with replication, being able to set things like worm capability if need be, keeping that deduplication and compression to give you the lowest cost and best data efficiency as possible, and then be able to manage your data, whether it is through cloud migrations, having that multi-tier management, or maybe for that test dev again, where you need to have some writable snapshots. All of that with the security being crucial to it. We also have those built-in apps that we referred to. So what kind of workloads would this really work on? Realistically, you're not going to look at SmartFiles for every single workload. SmartFiles is built not as your all-flash tier 0. However, that's not where the primary amount of your storage is. It's in things like content management solutions and archives, sitting in that video production and those files that you're creating throughout your marketing teams. And of course, things like video surveillance, where you've got cameras and data in the back end. Then if you're looking for the analytics side, you can of course look at things like Splunk. Now, this works across multiple different industries. It's not just for one industry or one space. Whether you're looking at that archive for a PAC solution in healthcare, or you need to be able to do the searching for a law firm, this really plays across all of those different industries. State and local and education are often looking at things like that video surveillance case that we need to look at, especially as we move into an even more e-learning world. We're seeing more and more need for that collaboration and the ability for researchers to share data across and keep the costs down, often working from home and accessing that same data. That works within the life sciences as well as the education space. And then, of course, more and more we hear about the paperwork and the things that are needed for financial services. That's where we can also add in, whether it's the call logs for you're running your own environment or all the data and your documents that go back for the financial services world. Now, one of the questions that came up is if Cohesity is both a backup and a NAS, how do we back up that NAS data? So now you have your choice. Either you can back it up locally, so you're running it on your own platform, which obviously is not the best practice to just have that, but for quick recoveries, you want to make sure you've got the snapshot capability as well as the single data protect back onto the platform. But then you can also replicate that out to another site, whether it be to a cloud solution or to another Cohesity cluster, potentially at a secondary site. So you can both get to that data, whether it's in backed up or whether it's on the NAS side of things. Now, a lot of people say, that's great, but why would I switch to Cohesity SmartFiles today? I've got all that information, but you have to remember that there is a broad capability of that seamless multi-protocol access, whether it be NFS, SMB, or S3, and even Swift if you're looking to use it today as well. That integrated app infrastructure that allows you to have your antiviruses close, all your data close, your searching, your analytics, all of it on a platform that you can turn that on and off as you need, as you're looking at doing it, without having to add additional hardware and additional software. With a peace of mind of knowing that we started this to make sure you had integrated cybersecurity. Things like an immutable file system to allow you to not be as concerned about the issues at hand. Now, running on a non-Windows platform, again, does help you protect for things like that. Having that immutable file system, which gives you protection for things like ransomware attacks often. And then keeping your costs down with that global efficiency that we talked about with dedupe and compression. And we want to make it easy on you. Easy to click and go and move between your existing NAS into us, or to just manage it day in and day out. The ability to look at things across the board, even from a mobile app that we just recently released. And then having that Google search capability across all of your data, getting rid of the mass data fragmentation issue that exists today. All of that combines into giving you the freedom of a software-defined platform with modern-day file and object storage, with the usage of having that built on top of a data platform, all in one. And with that, I think I will open it up for some questions.
Yeah, great presentation, Michael. Let's do some questions from the audience. While we do that, I'm just going to bring up this poll. I want to call everyone's attention to the poll that says, what additional information would you like about the Cohesity solution? So let's see, Michael, first question that came in here, they're asking is, are there advantages to using Cohesity Data Protect for backup with SmartFiles?
So there definitely are some advantages to using the Data Protect, and that you can do things like check across multiple platforms. Not everything is file data. Obviously, you have things that are structured. When you're using Data Protect, you can use our insight to also look even into things like VMs that you've got running, as well as being able to have the protection and replication to multiple sites. So you do get the benefit of that data platform solution, not just a NAS or just a backup solution. The combined solution is really where you get a whole lot more bang for your buck.
Okay, that makes sense. And here's a little bit more basic question maybe. Is Cohesity hardware or software? And like what's the entry point? Where does it start? And how large can you scale?
So Cohesity is a software solution. We are a software-defined solution. We run on multiple different vendors' hardware. We have validated on, like I said, from HPE to Cisco. There's things other Dell, we've got customers on Fujitsu, we've got customers on multiple different hardware platforms. We do have a hardware platform as well, but we are a software solution. Now, as for where that starts, we would run anywhere from running into an enterprise environment where you may run a 3-node or a 5-node cluster. You may run out in a cloud environment. We can run with our cloud editions out in AWS, Azure, as well as GCP. Or you might run it on a branch office, on a much smaller solution, even if you have that corporate solution already. So you can run in what we call our Robo solution that we just released about 2 months ago or so, our Robo solution, again, working with those other vendors for the hardware, simply providing the software layer.
Nice, nice. A whole lot of different options there. I like that. Okay, excellent. Another question came in from Jason. He's asking what kind of reports could be run, for example, to show auditors what's going on with the data or the security?
So I think that's where, when I mentioned the app platform, the Spotlight app gives you pretty much a lot of capability to look not only on what users both accessed, modified, deleted files. You can show multiple users. You can show it over a different time frame, and you can run those reports directly out of Spotlight app, and you can have them recurring even, so you can have them on a knock screen or wherever, so that you can see what's going on.
Okay. Okay. Nice. And then next question is, can I run primary NAS workloads with SmartFiles?
You can, of course you can, and I think a lot of people determine what their primary NAS is. If your primary NAS you're looking for is user directories and storage for video and manipulation for departmental data, then sure, then it's definitely can be a primary use case. If you're looking at it as a tier 0 that you're help running the New York Stock Exchange, I wouldn't do that as your tier 0. It's not built for that. But it is definitely for your tier 1, tier 2 primary storage use cases.
Okay. Okay, nice. And then what about limits to scalability? Is there a maximum number of nodes, for example?
There is not a set maximum number of nodes. We have customers running 60, 70, 80 nodes out there. There are some very, very large environments. There's not a limitation from the software platform on that.
Okay, nice. And then another question came in. They're asking, can I use Cohesity to do application level backups, for example, of Microsoft SQL Server?
You can. So that's part of our Data Protect solution on it. And Data Protect, we actually back up all of you can do Oracle, you can do SQL, you can do, actually we have a solution around modern databases as well with Mongo or MongoDB or Cassandra. With SQL specifically, there's a great use case that we've worked on for developers with it. The ability to actually back up your SQL databases and then restore that database out to another SQL server so your developers can work with true data and true data sets has been really well received.
Nice, nice. Okay. What do you recommend people do to get started with Cohesity? What's the easiest option?
Well, I think there's multiple different ways. I mean, obviously, check out the website, and we've got some great starting points, whether there are coffee talks that we're running that you walk through, and you'll be able to get some more information for us. We also have the ability from local users to get you those POCs set up if need be, or you can try it out in any of the cloud editions if you want to use one of those to be able to access the Cohesity platform.
Excellent. Excellent. Sounds easy. Sounds like an awesome solution. Great presentation on the event today.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
All right. For more information on Cohesity, check out the handout that's available there in your audience console. And, of course, also visit cohesity.com. There's a lot of different options, as Michael mentioned, to get started and try the solution out for yourself. And now it's time for our first prize giveaway on the event today. Let's see. Let me pull up those prize winners right now. We are, again, giving away Amazon $300 gift cards on the event today, 10 of those. And our first two winners are Madeline Cowgill from Kentucky and Derek Regal from Michigan. Congratulations to both of those winners. I'll post those winners' names in the chat, and we've got 8 more gift cards to give away still on the event today, so make sure you stay tuned. And now I'm excited to introduce our next presenter on today's Megacast. That is Mr. Sazala Reddy, CTO and co-founder at Datrium. Take it away, Sazala.
Hey, David, thank you. Hey, hello, everybody, welcome. My name is Sazala. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Datrium. I want to talk today about innovations in disaster recovery. As many of you have experienced, disaster recovery has never been an easy problem to solve for every business. And so today I'm going to talk about how to think about this, how to make innovation, how to make progress in this world. And before that, what I want to talk about is just an introduction to how does innovation really work. I'll give a couple of examples of the theory and how innovation kind of progresses in the world. So in general, innovation, has a 3-step process. I've been in 6 startup companies and I've seen different ways of doing this, but they generally tend to follow this 3-step process. And there are, of course, exceptions to all of this, but you can generally apply this 3-step process to anything you see in real world, in your technology world you use, and in your work or in your office. You'll notice that there is a 3-step process. So let me go through the 3-step process, and we can then apply it to disaster recovery. So step 1 is that when there is a new technology which becomes available, over time, it becomes commodity. So in the beginning of time, something awesome comes out, and then over a few years, it becomes ubiquitous. Everybody knows how to do it, and it becomes commodity because it's now based on commodity components. The second thing, what happens is that after that is that, people try to fuse together all these commodity components in a new and interesting way. Because they all become commodity, they're easily available to everybody, and that becomes easy to do this step of convergence. And the step 3 is there is a new idea which comes out because of this convergence. So it is not straightforward like 1 by 1, 2, and 3 in how people think about it. But if you look at where people go, is they go for 3. Hey, here's my idea, but the idea has come about because of all these convergence and commoditization of components. I know it sounds a little vague, but let me give examples and show you how this actually works in real world. So here's an example. For example, this is the most popular one. This is iPhone. So the commoditization has happened because of 2G wireless. There's a CPU, MP3 players, browsers, cameras. All these became commodity over time. And the brilliance was that Steve Jobs could put it all together into one device. And what you got at the end of it was not just a device. What you got was intelligence in your hand. So you see this convergence produces a new way of doing life. That's kind of what it gives you. This is an obvious one. I'll show you another one. If you look at the cloud, Amazon started off as just having S3 as their basic infrastructure, but over time, they have built this huge cloud business. And the reasoning is all of the components on the left became commodity, like storage, how to do storage. There's a lot of open source things. You can actually, if you can make it work well for yourself, then actually there is an opportunity for you to commoditize it. Compute is commoditized. Virtualization, everybody knows how to do it. Databases, networking, all of these become a commodity. And that's how you're able to get this new convergence. And what you get at the end of it was Amazon now offers you instant data center for every business. So these are just 2 examples. You can apply to anything, and you'll see that there's convergence, and there's a new paradigm being applied to this convergence of components. So what I'm going to do is take you through an example for how to do DR, and how does this work for the DR, and why does it apply to DR. So if you look at any data center, you end up having to need 5 different functions for your data. It is just the way the data is. You need primary storage to run your workloads. You need backup to protect your data. And you need DR runbooks to kind of have this ability to orchestrate disaster recovery from one place to the other. And you need mobility. Basically what I mean is you need WAN dedupe, otherwise it becomes expensive to move data around. And you need encryption so that you get safety for your data. So if you go to any data center, people end up buying 5 different products. And you can change all these names, but still you end up having to buy five different products. I just picked a random set of companies which sell these components. Then each one is a silo. But if you look at all these components, they're all kind of commodity in some. They're slightly better than each other. Like if you look at that, in a primary storage, there's many vendors. But at some level, you have so much choice that they become commodity. In the commodity in the sense that people know how to build it. There's not enough engineering resources, enough technical knowledge how to build these, the scale-out file systems. The same is true for backup, and the same is true for runbooks, and same is true for WAN dedupe. So all of these functions have become commodity now. Okay, this is how data centers are. If you think this is kind of challenging because you have to manage all these five things, that is not the end of it. You have to then think of DR, and the reason DR is hard because you have to manage all these different products individually. So you have to then, when you replicate data from one side to the other, there's so many silos to manage that, in fact, there's actually more than these five things. You have to think about networking as well, and you have to think about your hypervisor as well. So there's actually a lot more components to DR than just these five things, but this is the core for your data. And if it becomes challenging because you have to manage all of these components of the second data center. And then when you have to push the button to failover, you have to kind of work together in some form to bring it all up. That's kind of what makes it really complicated to do disaster recovery. And if you're thinking, what, I'll ditch my physical data center and go to the cloud. But sadly, cloud DR is even more harder because these components, all these different vendors, now you have to download their software into the cloud and install it if they work in the cloud firstly. So then if you think it was expensive before you're having a second data center and you kind of download all this software and run it in the cloud, that becomes even more expensive. And you can do the math on this. So then you have to start compromising on, hey, should I be low cost? Should I only get backup vendor and ignore all these other things? The problem with backup only is that then it's not a primary storage. How do you run your workloads in the cloud? Then you'll say, okay, let me ditch my backup vendor. Let me go with the primary vendor. Then you're like, okay, wait, the primary is too expensive in the cloud, but I get quick recovery, but it's too expensive. So you have these compromises you're kind of making all along. And finally, you have to end up with 5 different consoles to make your DR work. That's why DR is hard, and cloud DR is even harder to do this. So if you apply the theory of convergence, what if we were to converge these 5 functions into one product as a DR site? And so what you have is your primary storage on your data center. Yeah, you need to run your workloads, but you have this simple stack, which can then do DR for you, all of it, which has combined all of these 5 functions into one software. And the advantages of this converged DR stack would be that because it's all combined together, you get this low-cost backups in steady state because it's a backup software as well. And then when you push a button, you can on-demand get primary when you need to, so it's only expensive when there is a disaster. And you get runbooks with it, and it's one UI. So that is the advantage of basically converging these 5 functions into one, especially the DR side. So this is precisely what we have done, is that we have converged all of these components into one software stack. And what you're offering is disaster recovery as a service with VMware Cloud on AWS. Low-cost backups in steady state, you get instant RTO, and no matter what workloads you run on your on-prem, could be, as long as it's VMware, we give you this instant RTO DR to the cloud. If you apply this theory of convergence to the cloud DR, you take all these commoditized components. Now you take backup systems, primaries, runbooks, encryption, WAN dedupe, all of these pieces, and you combine it into one software stack so that it works seamlessly well. Then you get this instant RTO to the cloud. It was never possible before, and now because of convergence, you can do all this stuff. Without convergence, each one of these is not sufficient. You need to kind of think about how to converge these so that you get all the properties you want. I have a couple of slides, and I'm going to show you how actually it works with some animation. So this, the picture shows you Amazon in the center. If you see the hexagon between it, that's the brass. That's our component. That's our SaaS service. It lives in the cloud. It uses S3 as our backing store. The idea is that in steady state, you just log into our cloud, this global portal. You download this lightweight VM and install it into your vCenter. vCenter could be on-prem, vCenter could be in the cloud, and you could have any storage system, could be any NAS, HCI system. And then in the global portal, you create backup policies to do backup and DR and runbooks. And then then you start replicating data and backing up data to the cloud. We store all the backups in S3, it's dedupe. And when there's a disaster, we'll bring up the workloads in VMware SDDC. A couple more animations to kind of walk you through step by step. So here it is, picture we're showing you like in steady state, we're doing backups to the cloud. It looks all good. When there's a disaster, it could be ransomware problems, your data center is compromised, or it could be that there is a temporary flooding, or whatever, or PG&E, or shut off your power for some time. So if you look at it any way or the other, there's a disaster. And then when you push a button in the runbooks, which you already made before, we will launch VMware SDDC servers on demand and basically live mount your data, all the backups you have, pick any backup you want and bring up your data right now in the VMware SDDC. The advantage is that in steady state, you're not paying for all these expensive components and you only pay for VMware servers when you need to. And the other advantage is that because it's VMware everywhere, you get this consistent operational experience so that you can't tell the difference between your data center and the cloud. Without this, you'll be converting VMs. That is not what you want in a disaster recovery. So in steady state, you're running there in the cloud for a couple of days. And so imagine you have 100 terabytes of data and you're running for a couple of days and 1 terabyte changed in a couple of days. And then you resolve your disaster, your data centers, because a plumbing issue went away, or ransomware was, whatever the problem was, kind of got fixed. And then you're back to where you were before a couple of days ago. And then you push a button, we will bring for a failback, and we will bring back only the changed data back to your on-prem. Like only 1 terabyte changed, and only 1 terabyte comes back to your data center. And then you're good to go. And then we shut down the VMware Cloud Services. So think of it as you're paying for insurance after you actually have an accident. So you're only paying for VMware services when you actually have a problem. Otherwise, you're not paying for it. So in steady state, it's low cost. And when you need to be high performance, it'll become high performance. So secret bit behind our software is the convergence. Like I showed you before, you have to have convergence to do Cloud DR. So our secret sauce is that at the core of our file system is we can do backups and be low cost, cheap and deep on S3 when we in steady state there's no disaster. And the secret sauce is that when there is a disaster, you can pick any backups you want, any point in time, could be thousands of VMs. You pick one point in time, and we will basically launch, we'll turn those backups into live VMs at that same instant. And we will bake it into an NFS data store in vCenter. There's no copying of data. There is no rehydration of data. It just instantaneously becomes live when you need to. So because of this convergence of primary and backup, we're able to do this. And the last piece is the runbook orchestration. This is what ties it all together and launches all the components in the cloud so that you don't have to learn anything in the cloud. It's hardly in a disaster. You don't have to read a manual of how to manage AWS components or all these other complexities. So we make it really easy that in a disaster, you push a button, it looks the same, and you bring up your workloads. And so ransomware is here. I mean, everybody is getting attacked by ransomware. It's a very, very interesting times we live in that this attacking everybody at this point. Every business is kind of in danger. So if you get ransomware attack, right, there are 3 things to consider. One is prevention. One is, how do I prevent it? How do I detect it? And then finally, how do I recover from it? So what we are offering is not prevention, but a way to recover. So because if you can't recover quickly, you're gonna have to pay up. So either you pay up or you can fight back. So fight back, you need recovery. So in case you have data center has been attacked by ransomware, one of the things you could do is basically use our Cloud DR to start up in a clean state and bring back workloads when you're done with it. The way it works is that ransomware is that it may attack you, let's say on Sunday at 1 p.m., but you don't know it attacked you at 1 p.m. You don't know what the exact timings are. You can take a guess based on the changes in the data sets, but that's not, it's gonna be a trial and error method that you have to try to kind of see when is a good clean backup I must go back to. So to do that, you need to run experiments. You may have to go back in time, like Sunday 1 p.m. or then Sunday 10 a.m. or Sunday 5 a.m. You will try all the experiments to actually recover from it. And you may have to recover hundreds of VMs at one shot. If you are not able to recover rapidly from this, then you're better off just paying. If it takes 8 hours to recover from this or 10 hours, then you're just better off paying because your systems are all down for a couple of days. So what we're offering is that you can pick any backup you want. They're all immutable. You can't change them. You pick any one of them, you click a button, and we will bring up all the workloads right now. Instant RTO, no copying of data, no hydration. And you can do this at scale. It's not a toy built for 2-3 VMs. It's built for scale. So this is the summary of like in a high-level picture back to where I was showing you before. So one thing I want to talk about is that besides our DRaaS offering, you can use it for any storage system. We also offer a DHCI platform, which is a primary storage system which runs in your data center. And it's an optional item. You don't have to get it as part of our DRaaS, but if you're considering refreshing your data center, this also is another opportunity to look at our DHCI product. So here's an example of a customer who chose us versus the other solution below. So on the top is our solution, the bottom is the other solution they're considering. So the bottom, if you look at it, they were considering 3-4 different products to do DR to the cloud. The customer had a mandate to go to the cloud for DR, to shut down second data center. So they were considering using a backup vendor, and they're considering using a runbook DR vendor to actually have it all together. The challenge is that when you do backups to the cloud, the backup gets dumped into S3. Sounds great in steady state. It's probably reasonably cost efficient. When you have a disaster, the issue is that you have to convert VMs into Amazon VMs. Problem number one. Problem number two is that it'll take you like multiple days to copy the data from S3 into EBS. That's not disaster recovery. Your systems are down for 2 days. It's not going to be acceptable. And also, the whole solution was like 4 different products. It's super hard to manage all these pieces. So with Datrium, they got one product, one bill, and it's one-click failover, one-click failback, and it's no conversion of VMs, and it's 10x more cost-effective, literally. So in steady state, it's backups in S3, and when you push a button, we'll launch VMware and VDC servers. That's what we are able to offer for the customer, and that's why they went to the Datrium solution. So we made many such examples for customers who have chosen Datrium. They all look kind of similar. So founders are from, we built data domain, we built hypervisors at VMware. They kind of have done a lot of things in our background, enterprise products. So we have taken this opportunity to convert a very complex, DR and backup process into a simple to use SaaS solution. That is kind of what we have done. And as a summary, what we want to do is provide you a global DR and backup strategy for your business. It's all managed centrally from this global portal. There is no more software upgrades to do. There is none of these old way of doing things. It's completely over-the-air updates. It's plug and play to any storage system you have. And we give you all these cool immutable cloud backups, and you get instant RTO with VMware Cloud on AWS, and then you only pay for things when you have to. So we have changed the dynamics of the economics of the game because cloud gives you the opportunity to do this. And all of this is possible only because of convergence of our software, of combining primary, backup, and DR, and a couple other things into one software stack. If you cannot converge your software, then you'll not be able to do cloud DR in an effective manner. So that's our offering. Check us out on our website, www.datrium.com, and you can sign up for a demo, and you can just give it a shot. Thank you.
Great presentation, Sazal. I love how this can make disaster recovery easier for so many companies, which I know can be a struggle. So let's see, we've got some questions coming in for you. And the first one they're saying is, so you're telling me that just backup software isn't enough for DR. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yes. There's a reason why you buy backup software, and then there's a reason why you buy primary storage. You need primary storage to run workloads because they're built for high performance, and you buy backup because it's cheap and deep, can store a lot of data. So if you just use backup software to go to the cloud, which a lot of people are probably considering, is that, hey, I'll use my backup software to back up data into the cloud. It sounds good in steady state. It looks cost effective. But when you have a disaster, that backup software is a backup vendor. They're not a primary storage vendor, but you need to run your workloads. So then what happens then is that you have to copy the data from your backup storage in the cloud into a primary storage in the cloud. If you have 100 terabytes, it will take you 2 days to copy the data into a primary storage system in the cloud. The problem exists on-prem. The problem exists on the cloud. It's the same problem. Backup is not DR. There's a reason why they call backup vendors and not DR vendors. So that RTO of 2 days is what kills you.
Yeah, great point. Great point. There's an important distinction there. Next question, what does it take to really recover
when you get hit from with ransomware?
Yes. So ransomware people are banking on the fact that you can't recover quickly because they've done the ROI on your business. By the way, we've done 3 or 4 webinars on this. And we kind of go into details of how ransomware really works and what they do and how they attack you. They're looking at the ROI for every business. They kind of done the math that your business, if it's down for 10 hours, will lose like $10 million. That's how they analyzed it. So they're banking on the fact that you can't recover and you're going to just pay up. And if it takes 2 days to recover from your backup software, then you're better off just paying up because everything is down for 2 days and your business can't really afford that. And they also done the math. If you lose $10 million in a day, they don't ask $10 million. They'll ask for $1 million so that you do the ROI and say, okay, you know what, maybe just easier to just pay $1 million. But if you want to fight back, I think you should fight back because if you just pay up, you don't know if they're gone. They're still there. They may come back later and ask you for more money later. So your best option is to fight back. As a society, we're better off fighting back and not giving into like ransom, right? So that to do that, you need to be able to recover fast. And that's why you need this combining converged backup and primary system together. You need backups because you never have to go back in time. And you need the primary to run your workloads at speed, at scale. So you need a combination to really make it work that you can recover fast.
Absolutely, yeah. Recovering fast is the key here. Next question they're asking, you said that the world is moving towards the cloud for DR. What makes the Datrium solution unique?
Right, good question. So the couple of things. One is the ease of use. You know, if you're going to live in the cloud, so we made this we made it into a SaaS offering. There's nothing to really download, install, or manage, or learn all these arcane things of how to do stuff. That was the old world. The new world is that every company is becoming a SaaS company. If you look at even VMware, right? Even VMware is a SaaS, offering a SaaS services in the cloud. It's all, even databases are SaaS services in the cloud. So that's where the world is going, is that you want to make it into a SaaS problem. Secondly, DR has never been easy because there are so many different components. You have to kind of make it work in your data center. And with SaaS and automation, it now becomes really, really possible to simplify DR to a point of just clicking a button and get your disaster recovered. And that's only possible in the cloud because of the new way of doing SaaS offerings, and then also the cost economics of it. You only pay for things when you need to. So the compelling forces are huge, and the economics and the simplicity are so vast that people are going to adopt cloud DR. It's just a matter of like how long will it take to people to get there. But it is going to rapidly take over the DR industry.
So Zala, it's been really great having you on. Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, David. Thanks everybody.
All right, excellent presentation there from Sazala. I'm going to bring up the poll question now that just says, what additional information would you like about the Datrium solution? And I'll leave that up because we have some prizes to give away. We also, of course, appreciate all the great questions coming in about the Datrium solution, and we are responding to those electronically as quickly as we can. So thank you for those great questions. All right, let's see. Next prizes. Again, these are for Amazon $300 gift cards. This one is going to William Caton or Catton from Texas. Congratulations, William Catton from Texas. Next gift card is going to Kimberly Strong from Tennessee. Congratulations, Kimberly Strong from Tennessee. Again, we've got 6 more gift cards to give away still on the event today. So stick with us. We've got a lot of great content coming up. We are about to hear from Nutanix, and after that, you'll hear from Pure Storage. So again, thank you everyone who's answered the poll so far. We appreciate those responses. Let's get a few more. All right, excellent. Thank you, everyone. And now it's time for our next presentation on today's Megacast. I'm excited to introduce Mr. Devin Helms, Director of Product Marketing for Storage Services at Nutanix. Devin, take it away.
Hi, Dave, and thanks for having me today. So, you know, a lot of the success that Nutanix has had stems from our realization that IT didn't need to be complex anymore. For a long time, delivering data to applications and end users required teams of experts working across several different complex systems. And this was a very slow and expensive way to deliver data to apps and to users. But it's what we had, so it's what we had to deal with. Now, when Nutanix came on the scene about 10 years ago, we really pioneered hyperconverged infrastructure, and we came with this idea that infrastructure didn't need to be so complex. We could create an app-like experience for infrastructure, and we saw this happening in IT environments in the use of cloud, and we knew that we could bring that same level of simplicity to data centers. So people talk about this as the private cloud or the hybrid cloud because the cloud-like experience is what they wanted to emulate in their own private infrastructure. They want to go from a menu of options and select a few predefined packages, and then they want to have those packages deployed wherever and whenever they need them. Now, what's interesting is that while we find a lot of IT organizations want this cloud-like simplicity, in fact, 91% report wanting this cloud-like simplicity, only a few IT organizations have been able to do this. And we're seeing reports of as few as 18% of organizations are able to do this. And the key reason is around the complexity of legacy systems, the inability of those systems to support these models. Making the three tiers of architecture work together and orchestrating them to deliver based on predefined options is hard because they were never designed for that. Monitoring and managing all of those systems requires experts from each domain, whether that's storage or networking or compute or the application side or the virtualization administrators. And because each has its own set of management tools and its own knowledge that comes with it. So data has become an especially difficult challenge in digital transformation and simplification because of the number of different places it lives and the many different creators and consumers. And each one has a need to speak its own language and follow its own management structure, whether that's block or file or object. And this problem is only becoming more difficult as data grows. Now, I don't think it's going to surprise anybody of our viewers out there that we're seeing data grow by as much as 80% per year in some environments. But what can be surprising is the source of a lot of that. A lot of that data is now being created by edge and remote applications. So really breaking that central data center model that legacy IT was based upon. In general, legacy infrastructure with its three-tiered nature creates challenges, particularly as the data footprint grows. But beyond the three-tier legacy infrastructure, storage brings with it a whole set of challenges on its own in the form of storage silos. Today, administrators addressing storage needs have silos for block, for file, and for object storage. And each one has its own management pane of glass with their own context of knowledge and each with their own utilization paths. So to support organizations moving to private cloud and to support this goal of simplification, we envision a platform that reduces this complexity dramatically by breaking down the silos and offering a single infrastructure platform that can serve any data type, any use case, and any user need that the organization finds. When we do this, we create one single management experience. We can create greater automation that allows the cloud-like experience where you select an option from a menu and your infrastructure is automatically delivered. We can simplify the support and maintenance experience by giving you one source of truth, one pane of glass that gives you all of your truth of your infrastructure. And we can eliminate the grind of maintaining all of these different types of hardware with the nights and weekends and downtime work that would typically require, especially during tech refresh processes through that automation and through that single pane of glass. The beauty of Nutanix is the elegant and flexible Cloud OS platform. It's the simplicity and it's the flexibility that's baked into that platform that our customers really benefit from. The Nutanix AOS platform is deployed across share nothing node infrastructure with nodes from any one of several different vendors. Now, when I say shared nothing, I mean that each one of these nodes is self-contained with storage, network, and compute in the node. They come together with the AOS software layering on top of them to create a shared cluster so that all of the resources in each of the nodes is brought together as a shared pool of resources in that clustered environment. Storage is similarly provisioned across this shared nothing environment with virtual controllers. These mimic the physical controllers that you would have in a traditional legacy environment, but because they're virtual, they benefit from a lot of the benefits of a virtual environment, such as dynamic provisioning, dynamic resource control, and also management from that same point of view. Now, this means that from that one platform, from one set of hardware, from one management pane of glass, you can deploy file, block, and object storage. This one infrastructure can serve structured production workloads, unstructured users, and application data with file storage, and born on the cloud and long-term storage requirements for objects. And all of this from a single flexible hardware platform and managed, again, from that single pane of glass. Now, the big question that we often hear in initial discussions is, what would you need to give up to get this level of simplicity and flexibility? And the answer is nothing, really. We not only offer enterprise-grade capabilities that you'd expect to find in any enterprise-class storage system, but we also offer features and capabilities that are only available to our silo-busting consolidated storage platform. Because we break down the silos, we're able to do things that legacy systems can't even achieve. The platform, first of all, is performant. Not only are the underlying nodes themselves performant with processing and compute power that you need to be able to host your workloads, but the intelligent tools that help administrators deliver the performance can also fine-tune that performance to meet whatever needs you have on a dynamic basis. So as workloads increase their requirements, the intelligent tools can automatically provision additional resources to help meet and scale to those needs. Scaling physical resources is as simple as adding another hardware node to the cluster and auto-discovering it. Resources are added to the pool and available to workloads immediately. And just like with scaling virtual resources, scaling physical resources can be done with no downtime. And not only does AOS monitor performance refinements, but it also watches for potential problems and provides automatic remediation. And this is important when you consider the amount of time the administrator spends on just keeping the lights on, fixing and maintaining the system, keeping the system up and running. Data stored on AOS is stored optimally using compression and deduplication, and also erasure coding for availability in the most efficient manner possible. And data protection and data placement with tiering and snapshots and cloning is both efficient, but also gives you the right performance at the right time for your workloads. Security is baked in from day one, and that can be seen with the granular level of user-based, role-based access and control, but also with the at-rest encryption and encryption in flight of all of your data, so that your data is never put at risk. We also provide a worm for object storage, so that data is immutable when it's put into an object storage environment, giving you assurance that data is written and stored without ever being able to be changed, particularly for compliancy purposes. And what we're probably best known for is the operational simplicity we provide with our one-click non-destructive upgrades, our simple automated provisioning, and our single pane of glass management for your entire infrastructure. So I've mentioned simplicity a few times, and that's because at the heart of the problem for most IT organizations is that they can't achieve their digital transformation goals with the complex systems of old. The old legacy systems that they had to manage, where they had teams of people managing each component. It just doesn't meet their digital transformation needs. And we solve this with the Nutanix Prism interface. The Prism interface is a single point of view for your entire infrastructure. Now that's true across block, file, and object storage. So each one of those components can be managed and provisioned from that single pane of glass, but it also extends across your entire infrastructure, be that storage, network, and compute, from that same single pane of glass management interface. This is used for deploying your AOS environment. This is used for provisioning your storage resources. This is used for troubleshooting and for monitoring and for management of your entire environment. So again, one point of glass. I think about this in terms of what it eliminates from a management perspective, and where you have those meetings of different administrators who are trying to identify a problem and trying to recover from an issue, and having all of those different tools, all of those different sources of truth to manage. This eliminates that because it has one point of truth for everybody to agree on, and that finger pointing is eliminated because you have that one pane of glass, that single source of truth to go from. So another example of this is the way that we simplify day 2 operations. By day 2, we mean that these are the things that happen after day 1, which is where hardware is sourced and procured and systems are set up. That's typically what we refer to day 1 operations. Day 2 is where you start to do things like provision and maintain your environment. So the single platform allows for single-click software upgrades that are also non-disruptive. And this update to software happens in a rolling manner. So basically, you click one button to initiate the update, and it happens on one node at a time, with workloads that are hosted on the infrastructure gracefully moved to other parts of the Nutanix platform to prevent them from being brought down when the nodes are being updated with the software update. When the first node is finished, workloads are moved, and the second node in the cluster is updated. And again, this happens with a single click. This can also happen in production environments. In fact, most of our customers do this during production periods. So it eliminates those night and weekend update operations that a lot of organizations have to deal with. In addition to the single-click update and upgrades, data monitoring and hardware monitoring from a single pane of glass is available within Prism. And this gives you the ability to see what's happening with your storage utilization, across file, block, and object. This gives you the ability to see what's happening with your CPU utilization, with your compute utilization, with your network environments, and also gives you control and visibility into the security and availability of your environments. So all of this from that one single pane of glass really eliminates a lot of that time. Organizations typically report about 80% of their time spent on break-fix activities, and we see a dramatic reduction of that with the simplicity that we bring with a single pane of glass and a lot of this automation that's baked in. Now, when we talk about that automation baked in, we came at the entire administrator experience with a consumer-grade design, basically a design that was simple enough for any administrator, whether they're a storage or compute expert, or if they're a generalist administrator, to be able to do a lot of the day-to-day operations themselves, freeing up the specialist administrators and the experts to be able to just focus on the key areas where they deliver the most value. And this includes not only the single management we talked about with the single-click upgrades, but also single-click operations like provisioning. You can do in just a few clicks, you can provision out your compute environments for your applications. You can provision out your storage environments for file, block, and object. And you can do that whether you're a generalist administrator or the expert administrator. And in fact, role-based access controls allow us to give specific administrators access to do that. So when it comes to provisioning out the storage shares, this is an area where we see a lot of benefit from our customers, because they're able to have the application owners in a lot of cases using RBAC controls to limit what they can do. They can have those application owners self-service their own provisioning activities. Now, when you think about what you used to have to do to provision out storage, it was create a ticket, send it out to the storage team. The storage team would spend a few days with the ticket and eventually deliver it over to the networking team. The networking team would then create the network paths for the storage share. And then after about a week, the application owner would get their share back and be able to start finish off their own projects. But by having this self-service, single-click operations for storage provisioning, which can be done in about 20 minutes, the administrators themselves, the application owners themselves, can provision this out, can manage their own destiny, if you will, their storage destiny, and reduce the amount of time it takes for them to complete these storage delivery projects. And we've seen a lot of our customers push out a lot of these day-to-day activities to those application owners to speed up time to delivery, and also, again, to free up their storage administrators to be able to focus on more value-added tasks rather than the storage administration and the day-to-day administration. Another area where consumer grade design and simplicity is critically important is in problem remediation and maintenance. And what we see with a lot of organizations, especially who are in who are dealing with three-tier infrastructure, is that they're spending a lot of time just on keeping the lights on. And that's because the systems are not aware enough of the entirety of the system to be able to remediate problems before they come. Now, Nutanix AOS and our storage systems come with a remediation engine that monitors the entire environment, monitors it for its health, its performance, and its utilization, and tracks for any sort of spikes or anomalies in the environment to see if there's an opportunity to fine-tune performance, to remediate a situation before it becomes a problem, or to add additional resources to service growing needs of applications. Now, not only does it monitor that, but it then provides a remediation option to the administrator. So the administrator will get an alert that tells them when there's a problem. It will tell them what the best steps to remediate it are. But the best part is it will even give them a single-click option to have the system self-remediate. So for example, it may see that there's a spike in the number of users hitting a file share. And so they would be given an option to add additional virtual resources or virtual cores, which they can click on that option and then have those resources or cores be automatically added to that file share so that it can handle the additional spike in utilization. The same is true with object storage and with other parts of the AOS environment. So this really dramatically reduces that amount of time that administrators are spending just keeping the lights on and maintaining systems, but it also empowers non-experts to be able to manage some of that remediation activity, some of that maintenance activity. So once again, you can put control into the hands of the application owner. An application owner who gets an alert about their own storage systems can then self-service their own troubleshooting by selecting the automated remediation process. One area where legacy silos seriously fail the administrator is visibility into the data being stored. And with the rapid expansion of data, particularly the unstructured data, administrators are in greater need than ever of the ability to understand what data they're storing and how it's being used, and more importantly, how it might be being misused. A part of our platform that we provide is a data analytics engine that gives deep insight into the data that's being stored on your Nutanix platform. We provide audit trails to show administrators how it's being used over time. We provide anomaly detection to warn the administrator when potential threats and malicious intent, such as ransomware or malware attacks, are occurring. And we provide all of that in that same pane of glass that is part of the Prism management context. So once again, you're not required to have another tool. You're not required to have that second body of knowledge to be able to maintain all of this. So our analytics engine is based on an API set that allows for external tools to be able to control the analytics and draw data out. We also offer export to CSV and JSON files so that you can get that data into external applications if you want to use that as part of a broader auditing process. But we provide a interface from within Prism for that analytics engine so that the administrator can quickly consume the data that's being generated about their data. And so what you're seeing on screen here is the analytics interface that an administrator would typically see. This gives you things like capacity trends over time, when storage is added, when it's removed. This gives you information about permissions, about permission denials, when there's risk of somebody trying to access something they can't. This also gives you information about the top types of files being used, the top types of data that's being accessed, the way storage is being consumed. And it also gives you some interesting controls, such as limiting the types of files that can be stored. So for example, if you've got a critical business share that's really only dedicated for engineering design files, you can tell that share not to allow MP4 files, video files, or audio files, or things that just would take up space and not be part of the core design or core intent of that storage system. So all of that can be done through this analytics engine, giving you greater control of the data that you're storing on your environment. Now, a snapshot in time is one thing, but what administrators really want is to be able to show over time the trends that are happening. the user activities that are happening, the file access and file storage types that are happening. And we provide audit trails that give you all of that. One of the coolest use cases for this is watching trends of access violations over time. So if you've got users that are doing things that they're not supposed to be, or that you're seeing activities happen that you don't want to be happening on your environment, this audit trail over time will give you a list of all of the activities that are happening by user, by file type, to show you if there's a pattern in the misuse. If somebody is known to be trying to delete files and they're not supposed to be, you'll be able to see that in that audit trail. And again, all of this can be exported out into JSON and CSV file format, which are common file formats for broader auditing tools that you might want to use. We also integrate with some of the industry-leading auditing tools, so they can automatically pull from our audit trails, including Netrix for auditing purposes. One of the really interesting features and that addresses a major challenge for administrators is anomaly detection. So it's static to have a dashboard. You can go and look at it whenever you want, but what administrators really want to be able to do is set rules to say when something occurs to be alerted about. Anomaly detection allows for exactly that. You can set up a series of rules that watch for certain types of activities that you don't want to happen on your environment. For example, a user could delete 1,000 files, and that might indicate that there is a significant problem, that there's a risk in the environment because that person shouldn't be deleting those files. Or you could have a ransomware type activity where ransomware will traditionally start by changing a lot of permissions on files, so making them inaccessible to administrators and to users. And those kinds of activities, those rules can be set up within the anomaly detection engine. And then when those thresholds are met, alerts will be sent out to administrators so that administrators can react more rapidly and remediate the problems more rapidly than having to wait for the system than having to wait for the problem to become more apparent. Now, one of the things that I think is really interesting about our platform is that it's so easy to use. We actually are able to provision out test drive environments. These are real world clusters that you, the end user, can come, the customer, can come and take a look at for yourself on Nutanix Test Drive. You can play with the files and the file storage and provisioning. You can play with Nutanix AOS in a rapidly spun up test drive environment, so you can see what it would be like for yourself. If you're already a Nutanix customer, you actually get some capacity of our storage systems for free so that you can try this in your own environment. And we have simple YouTube videos. These are about 2 to 3 minutes long each, that you can try it yourself in your own environment and see how easy it is to deploy and test and manage your environment. So with that, I want to thank everybody, and I'll turn it back over to you, Dave, for Q&A.
Great presentation, Devin. Absolutely. Let's do some Q&A here from the audience. We've got some great questions coming in. While we do that, I've just brought up this poll question. And the question says, what additional information would you like about the Nutanix solution? I'll just leave that up. And let's see, first question that came in. Devin, I want to make sure you're there. Are you there?
I'm here, David.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Josh is asking about the audit trail features. He said, I wonder if this could help with compliance like GDPR. Have you seen that?
Yeah, it's absolutely one of the main use cases. So GDPR, some of the key things are how and where data is used, and also tracking the ownership of data. So the compliance for file data, we can show that information for permissions, for access, and access violations. We also integrate with third-party tools such as Netrix, which if you want to do deeper dive into the data, for example, looking for PIC information, we integrate Nutanix Files analytics engine with the Netrix analytics engine, which allows you to get deeper into the data to do that next level. It also allows for that end-to-end beyond your storage auditing. So a great question, and the answer is absolutely, with the caveat that the storage and the data is one part of your GDPR auditing process, and there's several other parts, and thankfully we integrate with those other parts as well.
Nice, nice. I like those integrations. Very cool. Another question, Rodney's asking about the analytics. Is there a way to set up alerts so that you know ahead of time before you run out of specific resources?
Yeah, when we talked about the anomaly detection, one of the key things we think about with the anomaly detection is for information like who's using files or misusing data. But you can also put things in there like types of files stored, capacity available, capacity for shares, and all of that's available from the analytics engine. And you can put thresholds on there that say, if we're running out of space, if we're running out of capacity in a specific share, or if there's too much of a certain type of data in a specific share, send an alert. So that way you can take action before it becomes a problem.
Nice. All right. Let's see. Next question they're asking is, what about the storage protocols? What storage protocols do you all support?
So the platform supports the three major types of storage: block, file, and object. So for block storage, of course, it's the iSCSI to LUN storage. So giving you the structured data block storage that you need, and we deploy that in a solution on our stack called Nutanix Volumes, and that's included with your AOS environment. For our unstructured data, there's two key types of storage. One is file storage, of course, and the second is object storage. For file storage, we support both NFS, and that's both version v3 and v4, and SMB. And in fact, we also support multi-protocol, which is the ability to have a share accessible between both NFS and SMB at the same time. In mixed heterogeneous environments where you might have machines that are running a Linux core and Windows, and you need to transfer between the two, that multi-protocol is important. And then, of course, for object storage, we support the S3 protocol, so any S3 supported application will work with that object store.
Nice. Okay, a lot of flexibility there. Next question is about, for example, at small or edge locations, what's the entry point for Nutanix? How do you get started?
So our smallest configuration for an RF2 type of configuration where you can support multiple failures in the system without going down is a 3-node cluster. And a node is essentially your building block. So it's the compute storage resource single box, your Intel server, if you will. And so 3 nodes for RF2 is required. But for edge cases, we actually have customers that we've certified, and we have this as stated support in our document, single node clusters. Of course, for availability purposes, that single node, you'll want to make sure you're replicating and have backup and everything, because you don't achieve that RF2 with that single node. But we can do nodes at that size. And that is valuable for robo sites where, you want to give local support for data storage, but you don't want to have an entire data set in there. So 2 to 4 U's to be able to use in the storage rack to be able to host it. So that's the use case we see that for.
Okay, nice. Next question, what are the supported virtual environments?
The key ones, of course, we support are VMware as well as Hyper-V, and of course AHV, our homegrown virtual environment, and then we also support the Linux deployments as well. So Zen.
Okay, and with Nutanix, can you bring your own hardware?
We have a stated hardware compatibility list, and it's pretty exhaustive. Of course, if your hardware is on that HCL, that's a possibility. If it's not, then we definitely recommend you source your nodes from the vendor list.
Okay, got it. And then what about as you add hardware over time? Does it need to be all the same, or can it be mixed hardware sizes?
Yeah, the hardware is pretty flexible, so you can have mixed nodes. And in fact, what we'll typically see in clustered environments is a customer will have a range of cluster nodes that they purchased in the first deployment, and then as they grow and need to add additional physical resources, they'll add nodes. They'll add more powerful, newer nodes as they go. So you can have a cluster with multiple nodes of the same type. We typically recommend that the nodes in a cluster be from the same vendor. So if you've got like some that's Lenovo and some that's HPE, you might want to deploy those out in different clusters just for supportability purposes and to make sure that you're aligning your nodes properly. But definitely mixed nodes is supported, and not just supported, it's very common. We see that a lot.
Okay, nice. And so I know you had a link in your slide deck to the Nutanix test drive. I want to tell everyone that I put that link in the questions box there. It's simply nutanix.com/test drive. So Devin, if people go to that link, they fill out the form, can you kind of just briefly walk us through what happens after that? What do they receive?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned in the presentation, the test drive is a really cool tool. It's basically we're able to deploy out entire HCI environments on cloud for test purposes on demand. So a customer that's interested in seeing this can go into the test drive, submit the request, and they can do their own deploy on it's actually in a Google Cloud environment. And that'll allow them to get stick time on setting up AOS, on setting up the different storage types, as well as a number of the different solutions that are within the Nutanix framework. And then also just play around with some of the key features like the analytics engine for our storage suite, or the automation capabilities that we have with some of our other components like Calm.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, sounds very easy. A great opportunity to try it out for yourself. Like you said, get some stick time. I like that.
And with that, there's basically cookbooks to walk you through what you can do, but it's not limited to the cookbook. So it's not like go in there and figure it out. You'll have a guided tour, if you will. But of course, beyond the guided tour, administrators and tech people, of course, like to play with the tools themselves in their own way, and that's certainly capable.
Absolutely. All right. Well, excellent. I think that's all the time we have, but it's been great having you on the event today. Thank you, Devin.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody for joining and listening in.
And thank you to Nutanix for supporting the Megacast today. Again, for more information, visit nutanix.com/test drive to try out the solution for yourself. And now it's time for our next gift card announcement. Again, we're doing Amazon $300 gift cards today. We've got one going to Jan Villeran from Oklahoma, Andy Sy from New Jersey, and Brandon San Miguel from Texas. I'll announce the winners in the questions box as well. And now I'm excited to introduce our next presenters on today's event. They are Mr. Vaughn Stewart, Vice President of Technology Alliance Partners at Pure Storage, and Shilpi Srivastava, Director of Cloud Solutions Marketing, also at Pure Storage. Vaughn and Shilpi, great to have you on. Shilpi, take it away.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this session where we'll talk about HCI or CI, how to make the best infrastructure decision for your data center. I'm Shilpi Srivastava, a Director of Cloud Solutions Marketing at Pure Storage, and I'm joined today by Vaughn Stewart, VP of Technology Alliance Partners. And we'll take you through a few things to look at over the next 20 minutes. It's a short time, but first we get into the topic very quickly for those of you who might not be familiar with Pure Storage. Pure has been a leader in the storage infrastructure industry. We started about 10 years ago, and since then we've helped around 7,500 customers innovate with their data in their data centers, in the cloud, and through their hybrid multi-cloud environments. We've been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for 6 years in a row, and have a leading net promoter score in the industry, top 1% amongst B2B companies. With that very quick intro, let's just jump right in. As a lot of you are going through this right now, your enterprises are driving towards hybrid cloud or hybrid multi-cloud environments. And as enterprises do that, modernizing their on-premises data center becomes a key requirement in helping with that digital transformation. And in the last few years, we have seen infrastructure frameworks become very popular. Frameworks such as HCI have become popular. And now, more recently, we see a trend where there's a renewed interest in converged infrastructure, or as some of us refer to it, disaggregated infrastructure options. As our customers at Pure battle with figuring the right infrastructure framework for their organizations, we wanted to dive deeper into what enterprises are looking to achieve from their HCI or CI based data centers. And this survey report from ESG shows that there are 4 common key considerations that or goals that customers are looking for from their infrastructure. Firstly, improved scalability. Secondly, better total cost of ownership. Then comes ease of deployment and simplicity of management. Juan, thanks for joining us today. You talk to customers day in, day out, and to help them make the right infrastructure decisions for their data centers. Can you talk to us about what is the best way for enterprises to go about making the right decisions for their data centers?
Yeah, hey Shilpi, thanks for having me on the webinar. I really appreciate being able to help you and support this. I think when we have conversations with customers, I think the foundational element is to understand that the way the private cloud or the virtualization or the hybrid cloud team, whatever you want to call it, right? The VMware team or OpenStack or Hyper-V. I think the foundational way to look at this is that the technology has advanced so rapidly in this space, particularly over the last 10 years, that I think a nice way to start is to look at, like, what are your criteria and what are you virtualizing, right? So I like to talk about aligning success criteria to your deployment, because that criteria helps you select which infrastructure best supports what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, we've got 3 categories here. We've got consolidation efforts, and that could be whether virtual server, like your tier 2 and maybe your tier 3 virtual machines, or infrastructure, as well as like VDI, right? Any large grouping of virtual machines where the goal is reducing the cost to the business, right? So you're looking for affordability in terms of both the hardware and the software. You're also looking at how do I scale operations, right? Operational simplicity also kind of equals to reduce operational cost. And I'm not looking or concerned about the availability of any particular VM. I'm worried about the availability of the entire infrastructure, right? In a consolidation effort, one VM down is an issue, but it's not a SEV1. But 100 or 1,000 VMs down, could be a resume updating kind of event. There's also, when you're looking at virtualizing tier 1 applications, right? That's still a nascent kind of portion of the overall number of VMs that we have. Now with vSphere 7 as a point of reference, right? There's some greater enhancements to allow more tier 1 and high performing applications to be virtualized. But when you get into that space, right, tier 1 or business critical apps, right, what do I care about? Well, I care about the performance of that particular VM container or application, right? And I also care about the applications availability, right? And so it's a different criteria than a consolidated workload. And then last is when we look at a remote or a branch office, right? What are we looking at? Well, we're looking at deployments that, they're deployed remotely, meaning a remote non-IT person tends to rack and stack, but they're operated back in the core IT team, right? Whether it's in a core data center or a remote data center, it's still, by a core IT team that usually doesn't have access to the physical unit. It also means that when you've got failures or maintenance, or you've got to do field replacements, that may be handled by a member of the non-IT staff. And so, these are kind of common criteria that we hear, and it allows us to kind of support some of what we're going to talk about here in the next couple of slides. So I think it's critical that before we go any further, we make sure that we do a little bit of housekeeping here, which is Pure Storage has a rich and robust ecosystem of technology alliance partners, and a number of them offer HCI platforms. The content that we're going to go through in the next couple of slides here is going to ultimately do some education or deliver some education in this space, and ultimately, do some comparison and contrasting. By no means is this meant to be competitive. This is meant to be educational. We have integrations and interoperability between our products and our partners' products, and I think you'll see that demonstrated in the next couple of slides. So with that, let's jump into it a bit.
The first major concern one is around integrated and easy management that customers are looking for. A single pane of glass is what they're actually looking for. How do we offer that based on the kind of infrastructure?
That's a really good point. It's probably the number one question that gets brought up when we are engaged in a we'll use VMware for most of our conversations, because they're most of our conversations with our customers. So when we tend to meet with a team that supports VMware, they want to understand, how can they work down and reduce the number of tools, get down to a single pane of glass. And so there's been an evolution in this space. Obviously, we've got a vCenter plugin, which we've had for a number of years, which allows the storage array to be completely managed within vCenter, right? So you can set up, you can actually assign a flash array into vCenter, and from there you can provision storage, deprovision storage. It's various types, whether VMFS, vVols, RDMs. I can also go ahead and schedule snapshots replication. I can restore items from that interface. Right, I've kind of got like a single pane of glass infrastructure, if you will, through VMware's plugin framework interface. More recently, as you see on the right-hand side of the slide here, is newer management constructs like VMware Software-Defined Data Center Manager, or SDDC Manager, gives you a modern single pane of glass for your entire stack, meaning it will go ahead and walk you through day zero and all the way through to life cycle management of the complete hardware stack in coordination with the virtual infrastructure that runs on it, from containers, virtual machines, through to workload and management domains. That tool supports not just vSAN, but also supports the flash array for all of those capabilities. And so you get a new form of single pane of glass management. In addition to this, right, I would be remiss if I didn't touch base on just how simple the flash array is. It is the simplest storage array in the industry today. It has nothing to tune, no trade-offs, and thus is ideal to support all workloads by its combination of high performance, high availability, and industry-leading data reduction technologies. This is a unique storage array because the notion of tunables and trade-offs, you find this in your legacy storage arrays, you find them in your hyperconverged platforms. And so when we're looking at integration, while the flash array itself is not part of the integration, this native capability enhances the simplicity of that integration and that interoperability. Beyond that, we have a product called Pure One, which is a SaaS-based management portal where you can manage your fleets and you get your software updates, etc. It also has a component called VM Analytics, which provides actual virtual to physical topology or infrastructure mapping. It allows you to quickly identify performance issues and go ahead to take remediation almost immediately, right? What's interesting with Pure VM1 Analytics is that beyond supporting the flash array, it'll also go ahead and monitor your vSAN infrastructure. So you can have simple integrated manageability, reporting, all within the VMware interfaces and extending into the Pure Storage management tools.
Yeah, so the integration with VM Analytics, this all makes the storage management super simple. What when we're looking at going further up the stack and looking at hypervisor management?
Yeah, great point here. So one of the really interesting elements that kind of got lost over the last handful of years was this notion that because HCI came from the vendor that made the hardware stack, there was this notion around integrated kind of one button upgrades. And what we've actually found was that simplicity that initially came with HCI, kind of got pushed through the hypervisor management stacks with tools like SDDC Manager, which can actually roll out the software upgrades across your whole infrastructure, and allows you to look back at the actual technology of inherent in the storage layer. And so what you find is by rolling out a disaggregated, or what people call a converged infrastructure, when you roll that out compared to HCI, you actually have up to a 10x improvement in the ability to be able to actually manage the hypervisor servers. This means you can upgrade the software or firmware on your nodes faster because you have no need to evacuate and rehydrate the data, or you avoid the whole notion of I'm just going to drop my data protection level while I'm going through this rolling upgrade. It also means that when you have a node failure, right, you don't do any timeouts waiting, for the node to come back up. You don't worry about, having to reconstruct the data. A compute failure is just a compute failure. And so, workloads get restarted on surviving nodes. And when that node comes back online, whether in the near term or in the long term, right, there's no impact because we're not moving any data around. We're not reconstructing any data. It also means that we can scale compute and storage independently. And again, avoid that whole data rebalancing that is just inherent to an HCI system. So a lot of customers kind of missed out on like, what was the impact of performance and their network and all their VMs when they've got compute and storage bound together. And so this probably warrants me to kind of walk you through this next slide here. We kind of call this the HCI data shuffle. And from what you see on the slide here is a real simple representation of 5 servers in a cluster. You can see they've got direct attached storage for their data. When I want to add another compute node, right? And maybe I'm doing this because I want to add more VMs, or I've got some more computational performance needs, or maybe I want to add more storage. I have to rebalance the data. This means read all the data and rewrite all the data. That time that takes is lengthy now, whether it's tens of hours or days or weeks, depends on the size of your cluster and the volume of data and the speed of your interconnects. But you have to understand that all that data, even if it's reduced, has to be read, reinflated, written down, new parity calculated, and then again goes into post-process data reduction. So it's a tremendous amount of I/O. This also means that when I look at a scenario like I have a server failure or maintenance, right, which I lose compute, I also have a simultaneous loss of data, right? And so again, both in planned or an unplanned situation, this occurs. Well, what happens there is, you have to reconstruct data from parity if that server doesn't come back online. And some HCI vendors actually even wait an hour before they try to recover your data because they know the performance impact is so high. They hope that server comes back. Obviously, if that's not the case, you reconstruct your data, you put in a new server, and then guess what? Another rebalancing has to occur. So there's just a tremendous volume of data movement and associated time because you've bound compute and storage together and you've lost a failure domain.
That was a great visual one. Thank you so much for taking us through that. So architecturally, we know that HCI is it's modular in nature, and so you can scale HCI in terms of modules. What is the impact of that when you look at the total cost of ownership?
Yeah, really, really good topic here. I think a lot of folks have looked and said, well, if it's HCI, it's servers, and servers with storage must be cheaper than buying a storage array with servers. And actually, that's not the case. And there's a lot of data here. So let's start with kind of 2 primary concepts. The first is when you build out with HCI, you end up building out silos because the compute is bound to the storage. And the storage has to be tuned depending on what type of workload you want to put there, right? You heard us talk earlier about, consolidated workloads in tier 1 and VDI. Well, when you're running those on vSAN, you actually make a pool that's kind of optimized for low cost, consolidated workloads. Maybe you optimize one for high performance, right? So that's your tier 1 apps. Maybe you do another one for round availability. Maybe that's another form of business critical apps. And then maybe you've got your separate VDI silo. Well, the compute is locked to it, the storage is locked to it, and you don't have the flexibility to reassign those resources without having to go through a data rebalance, right? A data rebalance on say, ejecting a server and a data rebalance on inserting a new server. So because of that, customers end up with these silos that they estimate for their use, and they're used at an inconsistent level, right? Maybe one silo is at 90% utilization. It was a good design. Maybe another one's sitting there at 15%, and you can't easily recoup that hardware and reassign it. When you look at a converged infrastructure or disaggregated infrastructure like FlashStack, you now get the ability to reassign compute on demand. You get to dynamically resize the storage for any one of those silos, or if you're looking at like VMware Cloud Foundation workload domains, right? It's just a lot more flexibility than what I think people assume they were getting with compute.
You can basically share then that storage between all of these types of workloads then.
Yeah, and ultimately when it comes to cost, I'm not trapping any resources, so I'm not taking on technical debt. The second part of this is when you look at a disaggregated infrastructure, you have a lower requirement for resources. What you see on your screen here is one of our TCO tools that can that takes virtual machines and virtual machine both in quantity and type as the input, and we'll go and compare versus public sizing tools from other HCI vendors and our sizing to show you what's required to support a workload. And what we find consistently is you'll need about 20 or 25% less compute, about 75% less storage, 50% less rack space, and 30% less power. And this really catches folks by surprise because of this reduction in infrastructure requirements, you pay less for a converged infrastructure. Let me explain two of the key elements here. The reduction in compute is based on when you're using HCI, you're doing your data services inside of the compute layer. So I think there's this notion that the data services is maybe 5% of the compute requirements. And it can be that low, right? If you're just doing a copy of your data. But when you want to do things like, I want to increase the level of failures to tolerate or the replication factor, when I want to use more space efficient technologies like erasure coding, as well as data deduplication and compression, when I want to do replication, snapshots, clones, right? And the big one, data at rest encryption. As I keep turning on each one of those data features, right, the amount of compute resources go up. So when you go to a disaggregated model, you've got a storage array that provides those services. You free yourself from having to purchase additional servers to provide data services, right? You're buying a data service device in a flash array. From a storage reduction perspective, HCI has a lot of overheads in terms of slack space, caches, a lot of the RAID 6 erasure coding parodies schemes have a 33% RAID overhead. We just don't have those high levels of overheads in a flash array, as well as our data reduction is known within the industry as the best. It's anywhere from 3 to 4x greater than what you find in other storage platforms. And so when you look at your total efficiency, you're going to buy a whole lot less storage and less compute, thus requiring less rack space and less power. The last area about cost that some folks miss is a lot of customers want to leverage whatever their infrastructure is today, and they also want a pathway to a future. And so one of the things that we're able to do is provide fabric flexibility and future-proof, right? If you've got a fiber channel infrastructure and you want to leverage that cost, but you're seeking the simplicity that you assume maybe is only in HCI, well, that hopefully what we've demonstrated for you is that simplicity is actually greater with disaggregator architectures. And you can also leverage whatever fabric you want. You got a current, storage fabric based on fiber channel, use it. You want to move to Ethernet? No problem. You're looking to adopt a next generation fabric like NVMe over fabric? No problem, right? What you have within a flash array as a part of a flash stack is this future-proof and flexibility of your fabric so that you're not having to abandon any one technology and being forced onto Ethernet only as your storage option.
Yeah, and that's a great point because we see a bunch of our customers, as you said, who have invested in fiber channel, for example. And so, yeah, they definitely want to keep using that and future-proof their investments in whatever fabrics they're choosing. And lastly, so we spoke about the cost factor, and lastly, it's the scalability factor. I want to be able to scale as data grows. We know that we're capturing and producing more and more data every day. Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and I think there's a couple things, right? First, we kind of showed that you don't have silos. You gain this agility and flexibility to assign and reassign resources, that you can scale compute and storage independently. So we've kind of covered those components of scalability. I think there's another notion, which is, how do you look at scalability and availability? So scalability from growing and managing my infrastructure, scalability in terms of what type of applications can I run, right? Can I put tier 1 apps on here? Do I have enough performance? But also, do I have the availability to run a large collection of virtual machines, right? Can I, is my platform more tuned for hundreds of VMs, thousands or tens of thousands? And so one of the things that we're proud of at Pure Storage is we've been delivering greater than 6 nines of availability of uptime with the flash array, right? And when you're in a maintenance or failure mode, that the flash array delivers 100% of your performance, right? And what you see here on the screen is just one of our stress tests that, to be frank, we probably need to redo again. You see the interface is kind of old and a little out of date. But what you can see is we go through all kinds of simultaneous failure scenarios, and the flash array just keeps on running and delivering that consistent performance that you'd expect, right? No drop off, no big data reconstruction, right? No rebalancing having to go on. None of those items that you have with Hyperconverged. Because again, right, a compute issue is a simultaneous storage issue and vice versa. So, we don't have that, which is one thing that's really nice about scaling your infrastructure.
The next thing, of course, is, we have a bunch of enterprises who have very diverse data centers today. What if I'm operating some of my workloads in the public cloud and hyperscaler infrastructure environments? I have some of my stuff on Pure, but then also require HCI to operate, say the remote office, branch office kind of a environment. Could there be interoperability issues?
Yeah, and that's right where we were going with this slide, which is, look, we're sharing with you everything that's possible when the flash array is part of your infrastructure, but there's a lot of customers that have different size deployment needs, and sometimes in that smaller environment, HCI makes more sense, right? I've got 3 servers or 4 servers. It's not that I can't deploy Pure Storage out there; it's that it would be a cost premium to do it. Also, there's customers that are still trying to figure out, hey, how do I merge my and I'm going to stay with VMware here, but how do I merge my VMware infrastructure into, a hybrid cloud model, right? So what you need to understand is that there's full interoperability between the flash array and a vSAN, right? I can do storage vMotion, I can do a SPBM, I've got my whole vRealize suite to automate and monitor. I can do, disaster recovery with SRM. So these two just similar infrastructures completely interoperate between each other because of the hypervisors, software packages. And as we go to the cloud, depending on which cloud you go to, right, you have this availability for the flash array to extend into the cloud, whether it's putting backup copies up in there through CloudSnap, whether it's replicating to a Cloud Block Store instance, which is flash array up in the public cloud and being accessible by your either native compute instances in the cloud or by that same hypervisor software like VMC and connecting to like RDMs that are provided through CBS for like test and development use cases, etc. But a lot more there than what we have time to cover for in this webinar.
That is great. Thanks, Juan. And this last section, just wanted to summarize your thoughts into, okay, we initially started with, you said, look at a deployment type, right? You spoke about consolidation of VSI and VDI environments, or your tier 1 application, remote and branch office. And looks like through the last few minutes of what you've presented to us, we can kind of, this framework kind of makes it easier to figure where do I put in a CI-based or a HCI-based solution.
Yeah, I think when hopefully what you've taken away is, if you're looking at a consolidation, right, where my criteria is affordability, operational simplicity, and availability of the infrastructure, hopefully what you've seen is a converged infrastructure offering based on flash array, helps you to accomplish those goals. It's not that you can't, run it on another infrastructure. It's to say that your optimized deployment is on converged infrastructure flash array. It's the disaggregated that makes the server management easier. It's the flash array that gives you all the flexibility and the unique capability to address all the different profiles of the workload types, from cost centricity to performance and availability centricity. You kind of carry that same logic over as we look at tier 1 applications, right? This is where my business critical apps run, and because of the flash array, I've got this greater than 6 nines availability and the consistent sub-millisecond latency that allows me to virtualize those tier 1 apps. Again, as mentioned earlier, more capabilities in vSphere 7 to make that a reality for customers, and they're going to start re-looking at that. So this is a real talk track today, right? This is an under-deployed component when we talk about virtualizing tier 1 apps. And then when we talk about remote and branch office, again, give me a small device, fit in my budget out there, let it be deployed by a non-IT staff member, let it communicate, replicate, be managed back by the IT core. You know what? HCI works there really well. Again, you can deploy any of these technologies in any space you want. We're just saying what's kind of optimal based on how we're looking at this. The bottom line is that, in our partnerships with VMware and OpenStack and Microsoft Hyper-V, right? It's the hypervisor that allows you to have the management glue and the framework that allows you to have the same consistent management experience and cross infrastructure interoperability to make this a reality for you. Obviously, we would be remiss to say that FlashStack is our converged infrastructure offering with Cisco. we've got a number of solutions on FlashStack that you can see here that run the scope of what we've been covering here, whether it's consolidated workloads, analytics, virtual desktop, transactional databases, ERP systems, right? This is a very highly capable platform that over 80% of those deployments are running on VMware and our virtualized infrastructure. So it's a tried and true and battle-tested platform for you to consider in your CI or your cloud modernization efforts.
That's great. Thank you so much, Vaughn. That was super helpful. And I hope that our audience today has taken away some easy pointers as to how they can go about making the right infrastructure decisions for their data center. And as always, thanks to the audience for joining us. For more information, please visit us at www.purestorage.com. And with that, we're open to taking questions.
All right, great presentation, Shilpi and Vaughn. Really enjoyed that. We do have some questions coming in from the audience. While I do that, I've just brought up this poll question for everyone. I want to call your attention to the poll on the screen that says, what additional info would you like about the Pure Storage solution? So let's see, Vaughn and Shilpi, are you with me?
Hey, David, we're here.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So a lot of good feedback coming in. Let's see, David out there in the audience said Pure Storage is great. Thank you. Marcus said this is very applicable to our current needs. Good feedback from Daniel. Thank you. Terry has a question here. He's saying, how can I get some more information on the integration between VMware and Pure Storage, benefits and ease of operation? Any suggestion for Terry?
Yeah, so we actually, on our webpage, flashstack.com, we have a bunch of Cisco-guided data designs as well as reference architectures. So we do have a CVD for VMware vSphere as well as for VMware Horizon, and that can give you more information around, best practices and how to make the whole process easy.
Yeah, and if you'd like to go into the details around our VMware integrations, I would direct you to Cody Hosterman's blog, which is at codyhosterman.com, as well as you can go to purestorage.com, look through our solution pages and our white papers, as well as the blogs at Pure Storage. But yeah, if you're kind of an operational guy and you want hands-on, real details, codyhosterman.com is probably just a great place to start.
Seen some of Cody's posts, and it's really good content. Excellent. All right, let's see. Next question. Do you have any validated designs for FlashStack?
Yeah, so as I was saying, we have quite a few validated designs across the board with the major vendors that our customers use. So VMware vSphere is one, as I was saying. We have validated designs with SAP HANA, Oracle, Citrix, and Hyper-V, all of that stuff. And apart from the Cisco validated designs, we also have other reference architecture material around. If you're using Splunk or Microsoft SQL servers, we do have reference architectures for those online as well.
Yeah, there's in excess of 30, nearing 40 Cisco validated designs for FlashStack, and then a whole larger catalog of Pure solution white papers that go beyond that. But yeah, everything from cloud infrastructure through transactional databases, ERP systems, analytics platforms. It's a wide swath.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, let's see. Next question. James is asking, he says, we have plans to, we plan to having trouble reading that. We plan to have part of our workloads on AWS. Does Pure integrate with hyperscalers?
Yeah, so we have something called a Cloud Block Store. That is our software which runs on AWS Cloud. And we also have Cloud Block Store for Azure in beta right now. What this does is basically if you're running some workloads on AWS, as you mentioned, or in addition to having your workloads on premises, this provides a unified, a consistent data platform, a consistent storage platform across your on-prem and your public cloud environment. In addition to that, if you're familiar with Pure One management, which is our user interface for monitoring and management of your storage environments, Pure One actually can then give you a consolidated view of everything you have on premises and in the cloud. It's all very consistent and consolidated, and also, the licensing as well. You can get a common licensing for your entire hybrid environment.
Yeah, and I would jump in here. And so the question was about, integration in the cloud. I want to just elaborate on that, which is as Shilpi covered, we've got Cloud Block Store in the hyperscalers, and that the depth and breadth of those integrations is ongoing. But when you look at extending your on-prem cloud into the hyperscaler, so if you're looking at the VMware cloud offering to extend from your VMware on-prem, understand that VMware Cloud does not support third-party for data stores at this time. We're working through that to see where we can get. So today, you're kind of limited to guest-connected storage, so more like test and development use cases if you use the VMware framework. If you're using containers, that's a different story, right? So, if you're looking to do containers on-prem and then extend it into the hybrid cloud, that's really nice because the infrastructure is abstracted and it looks a lot simpler. Look for us to start to put a lot more content online about what's possible and where we're going with that as we go through the second half of this year, because we've got a number of enablements coming on board that I wish I could talk about here, but I can't.
Yeah, and one more thing I would just add to that. So if you're using FlashStack and if you're a Cisco user, we do have identity designs with Cisco Hybrid Cloud Platform as well. So we have a reference architecture with Google Cloud using our Pure Service Orchestrator for Kubernetes storage provisioning, which has been tried and tested and available online.
Nice. And I mean, among the numerous reference architectures, I'm curious about a VDI. I mean, with everyone working remotely these days, can Pure help with VDI storage challenges as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we've got oops.
Go ahead, Juan.
Go ahead, Shilpi. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to step on your toes. I was going to say, absolutely. We actually did a large number of VDI and other remote worker enablement transactions through the beginning of this year and still currently. We've got validated designs with FlashStack for both Horizon and Citrix Virtual Desktop, as well as the full suites, be it Workspace and Workspace ONE. We also have a promotional bundle available today. Sorry to be a little salesy here, but we've got turnkey FlashStack configs available for customers today if they need to rapidly deploy, as well as we've got some promotional services around Pure as a Service offering where you can receive 12 months of storage. The first 3 months are free, and you're only paying for 9 months. So, a way to immediately address if you just have a storage issue that you need to scale up and you're unsure about how long you may need to hold on to that storage. So again, lots of flexibility and options available, as well as quick deployment guides and SKUs available.
Excellent, and that's something I haven't heard about before. I'm going to have to learn more on is Pure as a Service. That sounds very cool. So is that a purchasing model essentially, or?
So Pure as a Service is our utility model. So you pay as you go. And what's unique about Pure as a Service is you can deploy it with on-prem, you can deploy it with Cloud Block Store in the cloud, and you have the ability to change where you're utilizing that storage between on-prem and the cloud dynamically. So, maybe you deploy today and you're like, look, I'm doing 100% on-prem, a quarter from now it's 20% in the cloud, 2 quarters from now it's 40%. And you can just leverage that Pure as a Service for wherever your capacity needs need to be. So it's a very flexible program. Minimum commitments 12 months. Minimum capacity is 50 terabytes. Everything after that is billed based on usage, up or down.
That's a very cool model for storage. I enjoy that. All right. Well, I think we've answered all the questions that have come in. But it's been really great having you on the event today. Thank you so much, Vaughn and Shilpi.
Thanks a lot, David. Thank you for having us.
And thank you to our audience for joining. For more information, make sure you check out the handout that's available there in your audience console on the Pure Storage FlashStack solution. That is the IDC white paper, actually, that Vaughn and Shilpi were talking about in their presentation. So make sure that you download that for more information. Again, thank you for answering the poll. It is now time for our final gift card giveaway on the event today. We have an Amazon $300 gift card going to Renee Filligim from Texas, Glenn Orlick from Massachusetts, and Jason Frame from Nevada. Congratulations to all the prize winners. I'll post all of these in the chat right now. Before you go, I want to remind you to check out the 10 on Tech podcast over in the iTunes store. And also, I know I promised earlier at the start of the event that I would talk about the new ActualTech Media Envoy program. So ActualTech Media is resurrecting an effort that we started a couple of years ago, actually, and this is called the Envoy program. And this is a program that's intended to provide an opportunity to more directly connect IT professionals such as yourselves and our audience with enterprise IT vendors in a more collaborative environment. So on the ActualTech Media side, Scott Lowe, the CEO of ActualTech Media, and James Green, who's in charge of our content team, will work with envoys and our clients to provide a platform to give you a chance to ask more direct and probing questions of vendors about how the solutions work, how they fit into the business and technology landscape, and essentially get your feedback. And the I here is on helping educate other IT professionals and decision makers. Envoys will really be the voice of the customer out there. So that's the program. We do expect there to be some level of compensation, but we're still working that out. This isn't a new job. It's something to do with all the free time that some IT pros out there, hopefully you have, in your day-to-day job. So it's a highly selective program that starts with an application, and I'll show you the link here on the screen to the application in just a moment. But from there, we'll select who moves forward in the program with a more in-depth interview process with Scott or James. So we wanted to share the link now, and it's actually on the screen. It's that link you see there, the surveygizmo.com link. And from there, you'll be contacted by Scott or James. And now I'll just leave this up while I announce these prize winners. There we go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your excellent feedback. Josh, David, Jason, William, Kathy, Chris, lots of great feedback, lots of great questions coming in. We really appreciate those. Go ahead and click the link on the screen if you're interested in the Envoy program now, because we're about to wrap up the event. All right, I'm going to go ahead and paste the link to that, and I'll put that in the questions box as well. All right. So before you go, if you are a potential sponsor of an upcoming event and would like to chat with us, just reach out to us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And lastly, I hope that you'll join us for our event next week, especially if you're in state, local, federal government, and educational institutions, and you work in the IT organizations there. This is going to be a great event for you. We've got too many presenters for me to list out right now, but you see them on the screen there, all their logos. This is going to be a really excellent event focusing on SLED IT organizations, as they're known. So if you're interested in that topic and you work at one of these organizations, please join us on that event next week. When this event ends here, you'll be automatically redirected to the ActualTech Media Events homepage, where you can register for that event, or of course watch your email for an invitation as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Megacast today. I hope that you learned a lot and had a great time. I know that I did. We'll see you next time.